Order the Board of Selectmen meeting at 6:32. If you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If anybody is videotaping or audio taping, you need to let us know. Nope. Okay. We have some urgent business that has to come up tonight. It was brought to my attention just earlier that the ZBA is meeting, but they won't be able to hold a hearing because most of the people have to step aside because of conflict. So we're looking to appoint an alternate. His name is David Grady, and I will ask the chairman of the ZBA to come up and kind of go over what took place so everybody understands.
Hi, my name is Cindy Carville. I've been the chair of the ZBA for several years now, and on and off for many years, the past 20 years in town, probably more than that, 28. Who's counting? We're in a little bit of a predicament right now. It takes a supermajority to vote in a hearing in town on a zoning issue, 4 out of 5 votes. We currently have a 5-member board and 1 alternate. 2 of us, myself included, are abutters to the property in concern. So that leaves only 4 voting members, 3 regular and 1 alternate. Mr. Grady has willingly stepped up to serve as an alternate. We have never had to use 2 alternates in my recollection ever, so I'm sure if he's appointed, he will come if he's called, but I don't think it's an intention that he serves on the board regularly. But this is a unique situation, and if we don't hear it, he will get the variance by like constructive default. There's a technical term for that, but because we can't vote on it, after a certain amount of time, he will get it anyway. It would be really awesome if we could have this person appointed so that we can conduct our business Wednesday night. I'm sorry for the urgency. We were waiting to hear from town council in regards to something about rule of necessity. But quite frankly, I would rather do it above the board if possible with the full board who has no conflict. So, sure. Especially since the applicant is also a town employee and we don't want any appearance of impropriety.
Sure.
So
Thank
that's
you.
why we're here. I'm here.
Thank you for explaining that so everyone can get it.
Yeah, you have 4 hearings tomorrow night, as a matter of fact.
Yes,
so
we
that's
have
a
many
busy night
hearings.
for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So myself and Mr. Putman will be able to hear the other hearings. It's
Right.
just that one hearing that we need help.
Okay.
Okay. So can I get a motion to appoint Mr. David Grady as an alternate to the ZBA, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
You're all
I
set now.
appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
and
You're
Luck
all
in your
set now.
interviews tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the reason at hand, why we're here tonight. We have our first interview for town manager, and we'd like to go discuss amongst us the questions that we'll be asking the candidates over the next 2 nights. We got a sample packet from Mr. Lynch on some of the questions that were asked initially to the screening committee, and then some ideas that we might want to go on based on what we have asked. So I don't know if anyone has anything to add to this. If they're all comfortable with this particular format that's set up.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with this personally. I know we had talked about 1 member of the board taking a particular area and asking the questions there. Obviously, it's open to the other board members to ask questions on that same topic, should they have something else to add. And that being said, if that is the wish of the board, I would like to ask the questions on the economic development part of the interview.
No, yeah, normally what would happen in this type of environment, we would assign questions and everyone can ask questions as the candidate, you know, if something pops in your head, you can definitely ask the candidate any question you want.
Right.
Which is I mean, that's why they're coming to answer questions from us. So that's not an issue at all. You'd like to do the economic development?
Yes.
Well, all right, so let's start with the format. Is everybody comfortable with this format?
Now, do we, like, ask the question, let them respond, ask the next question, and do you give them all the questions?
No, I would play it by ear. I would, for example, let's start with let's do financial management. That one's down here. Could you describe your financial management experience and your approach to managing the finances of, it's redundant there, but then after they finish that, you know, you could start to talk about, well, what have you done with capital planning and capital budgeting? And then someone else could ask about his experience with grants. Someone else could ask something about collective bargaining. I mean, if you want, you can each, like, Amy, if you were to take the financial management, you could go through each one, but I wouldn't ask him everything at once.
Okay.
I'd let him go, and then,
He might even answer the
He
next
may
one
answer,
within.
exactly.
In the statement,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it won't be,
Yep.
okay.
so.
Generally, you would ask the first question and let him speak, and then go down from there.
Right.
Based on what you didn't hear or what you want to hear.
Drill down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That one has a lot of layers to it.
Right.
Some of the others don't necessarily. But feel free, for example, economic development doesn't have a lot, but there's a lot to talk about in economic development. Any of these candidates will have backgrounds in all of these areas, but you want to dig in a little bit, as they may say something and you may want more elaboration on one of those particular topics that they bring up. If they talk about, for instance, in economic development, they may talk a little bit about the mitigation that comes as a result. If what they do for economic development is working with a state or federal agency on infrastructure to mitigate the impact, you may want to delve into that a little bit and ask them to explain more of what they did. Or if it was an issue of butter issues, some of the community may not appreciate a particular economic development project. How did you? So you may find opportunities to drill down into some of those areas. Again, the financial management one is easier to sort of lay out all of those topics. A couple of them there that I put in, that we put in with the search committee, dealt with issues of community relations. How are they going to deal with the Board of Selectmen? How do they work? What's their style of communicating with the Board of Selectmen and working with the Board of Selectmen? You know, you're probably going to hear some very similar types of things, the nature of these interviews, but you'll be able to see the nuances of each candidate and how they go about their tasks of working with the Board of Selectmen, and which ones seem to have the best fit for what Winchendon needs. Another topic that came up quite a bit when we had the public meeting, in your own discussions of the qualities you were looking for, what the search committee brought, the search committee heard from residents, was the manager's ability to work with other members of the community, the style that they have of interacting with citizens. So I think that there's some opportunities to talk about that as well. And that's immersed in the relations topic number 4 down, or 5 down. But I think if each one of you takes sort of an area and asks the lead questions and then go from there, someone may sort of touch upon some of these other areas.
Again, I'm going to come back to, is everybody comfortable with this type of format?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So can I get a motion to accept the format as has been presented to us? So we standardize it for the next 2 nights.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Seconded?
All in favor, say aye.
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 And the chair votes aye also. Okay, Audrey, you want economic development?
Please.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, I'm going to do the opening, so why don't I take the first one?
You get 2. You get the first and the end.
I get the first and the end, so Okay, so I'm good with that, everyone else. All right, so I will go with management style. Who would like to touch upon that?
Barbara, do you want to do that? But Austin,
I
what's
know
your
which one,
preference?
I'd like relations. Could I take that one?
Sure.
All right.
So Barbara, do you want the financial or management? It doesn't have to be. Let me see.
That's all right. I'll do management.
Okay, sure. The financial.
And then you do the financial one?
Yes, I will.
That's exactly how I would have assigned them.
Really?
Okay.
Oh, no. Were that predictable, huh?
And
I know your strengths.
Okay, anybody else got anything to,
see what-
Can I just ask you to please make sure they speak into the microphone?
I have already told all of the candidates that.
These guys too, but everybody, because when you're at home, you cannot hear you guys.
okay,
So please, everybody focus on the microphones,
thank you.
and I promise I won't say a word.
Does she have her fingers crossed over there?
She'll probably gesture a little bit.
Are there any questions in here that,
No, I think
You
this
need
is.
me to-
No, I think this
Okay.
is a very nice format. I think I read the screening committee, so it kind of, it's got a nice blend. Obviously, they've heard what we wanted and what the community wanted, so,
Right.
you know, they've narrowed down the candidates, so we're really in a good spot as far as that goes.
One question.
Go right ahead.
Is it acceptable or within legal to find out about, does he have a family? You know, some personal information
That you-
about him?
Yeah.
Cannot,
Nope, you cannot.
nothing, nada, okay.
no. And that's where
Look for the ring.
I did,
Figure the age.
it's that.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I
Okay.
just don't, you know, I
Okay.
have a sense of
Yeah.
what we can say and not say, but, yeah, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't,
You really want to stay on the business level. The personal level is,
Well, kind of going along that road, and it's something that we'll have to discuss, obviously, is the residency requirement.
well, that was something we talked about early on, and the candidates, based upon the discussion that we had with the board, the candidates were all told that that was not an issue. That the residency was not, the board would waive that.
We would waive the residency
Correct.
requirement.
Correct.
Okay.
That's based upon the meeting that we had way back, when we talked about that. So,
Did we make an official decision on that?
I don't think we made an official decision as in a vote,
Okay.
but that was certainly
expressed. I mean,
expressed.
Okay.
In terms of, I do have illegal interview questions. And I can, if we could, we have time probably to make a copy of this for you.
Sure.
Okay. So, while we're doing that,
Make
why
sure
don't
I'm
we,
not looking at the wrong
why don't we wait, while we're waiting for him, we've got 15 minutes, if there's nothing else, I'd like to go into recess?
Quickly,
Go ahead.
about the residency requirement, I believe it's in the charter, right? Is that correct?
That you, right, that it
And they're
can,
reviewing it at the moment. Was there anything, was that taken out? Okay.
That was taken out of the
Obviously, we're still
charter,
standing by the charter that we have now,
at-
so
or it's proposed to be?
Right, yeah,
we know in the future that that's,
right,
if the people vote.
Yeah, it's,
right,
Right.
right.
yeah.
Correct.
But the former town manager, it was waived for him.
Yeah, and I understand that. I know that,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, we didn't want to limit.
No, I understand that, absolutely. I know, I recognize you need to have that pool. Okay. I'll save my thoughts for later.
Okey-dokey. So,
Oh, can I ask a question before we brief for recess? Are we going to be able, we'll wait and express our thoughts in executive session? Is that the way that works? Like, there's not going to be a debriefing kind of after the interview?
No, not tonight.
Okay.
No, no, and
No,
no,
there'll be no discussion.
right. The way the process will work is you will conduct the interviews tonight and tomorrow night. And then, everyone walks away. And then when you,
back Monday.
unless someone tomorrow night wants to make a motion to appoint someone, which I suppose is possible, but I think the thought was that selectmen had indicated they wanted to wait till Monday and come in at that time. It will be on the agenda, and then one of you, or 5 of you, will make a motion for a particular candidate. And then, one possibility is you could put all 3 names into nomination, and then each person choose. And then another possibility is that someone could just make a motion to appoint candidate Z, and a second, and it could be a unanimous vote to do that. The range of possibilities there are certainly possible. And there's a discussion of what you think of the strengths and weaknesses of each one and what you're looking for.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we have an open discussion first before there's any motions. That's my own personal feeling, obviously,
Just
whatever the
we'll
board
open the
goes
floor
with.
up for discussions beforehand and then put people's names in the nomination.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
the best way to handle it, because, you're gonna have 5 different people with views, unless you get totally blown away and everyone's on the same
Yeah.
page coming in. I mean, that would, if that's the way that goes, it's fine, but generally speaking,
Yeah.
I've always
Okay.
seen discussion happen,
Oh, yeah.
you know. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Is, anyone else got any questions as we're going?
All right, move to recess for 10 minutes?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we're in recess at 6:50. to order at 7 o'clock.
Let me introduce your first interview of the night, Keith Hickey, Town Manager of Salem, New Hampshire.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're very pleased that you can make it here this evening. We're also pleased that you applied to the position and didn't run away, given what everybody's read and talked about. Winchendon is a very small community of about 10,000 people. We like to pride ourselves on Yankee ingenuity here. So with that, I will go on from here.
Great.
Okay. Can you give us your background and what your interest in this position is, and why you think you're the right fit for Winchendon?
Sure. My background, good or bad, I guess, has been in municipal government now for over 25 years. The last 20 or so of those years have been as a town manager.
Can you speak into the mic, because otherwise people at home
Sure.
won't hear you?
So I've been doing this for about 25 years. Last 15 or so have been as town manager in a community. Love the position. I love the challenges it brings on a day-to-day basis. Every day is a different day. I've learned a while ago that you plan your day out and you get to work, and about 10 minutes into your day, in most situations, things change. I live in western New Hampshire, about a half an hour from here in Greenfield. The position here in Winchendon has interested me for a while because I have been coming into Winchendon now for several years. My kids played youth hockey and college hockey at the Winchendon School, so I got to know the community a little bit just as a tourist or a visitor. I've had the opportunity to play golf at the golf course at the Winchendon School. And so I would always just every once in a while take a peek at what's going on in Winchendon, what some of the hot topics are and whatnot. And I guess probably a year or so ago, Winchendon unfortunately got to be more newsworthy than it probably wanted to be, with some issues that were going on in town financially. So it piqued my interest. I started to keep track of it a little bit more often, and kept myself aware of what was happening. Saw that the town a number of months ago decided to part ways with their manager at that point, and was really looking forward to the opportunity, if it became available, to apply for the position. Winchendon is a small town. It's about 10,000 people. In my management experience, the number of residents that I've managed have grown from about 20,000 in Bedford to just over 30,000 in Salem. When I was a little bit younger, I thought bigger was better. As I've gotten a little bit older, and I like to think a little bit smarter, some of the things that you are able to take advantage of in a smaller town, you aren't able to take advantage of in a larger community like Salem. With 60 or 70 police officers and firefighters, and some of those people working nights all the time. There are guys, if they're out of uniform, that walk by me, I wouldn't even know they're an employee, and that's just not how I like to operate. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to tackle the challenges that Winchendon is currently facing with this board and with the capable staff that will be supporting me and trying to address the situations that you're in now, and try to put the community in a better situation moving on in the future.
How would you go about reaching out to the community as far as trying to build some community outreach, given the fact that through this situation that we've gone through, the town became very divisive?
Sure. My response that I gave, I made an assumption when I answered a question at the steering committee, or the interview panel, selection committee, excuse me, a couple of weeks ago. And my assumption was that the community has potentially become divided, and probably more importantly, less trusting of its government. And that's certainly an issue. One of the I've done a number of things in my past that I would look to try to suggest here in Winchendon. Some of those would include neighborhood meetings on a quarterly basis with different neighborhoods, either at schools or civic clubs, things of that nature, where we just invite members of the community, anybody who wants to come in and just have a very casual conversation and talk about issues that are occurring in Winchendon that they have some concerns over. Many issues that I may not even be aware of because they may be personal in nature. I've also sent letters out in the past to new residents that move into town, welcoming them to the community, making them aware of the hours that the town office is open, information on the transfer station, just basic questions that they would need that they may not know the answers to as they try to work their way into a new community, and really just to try to welcome them. With the business community, there's an opportunity, I think, to obviously walk around downtown, introduce myself to the merchants and the business owners in town, make myself available to some of the civic organizations that are in town to, again, just put a face with a name. My style is very much an open door, so I would like very much to be able to have everybody be able to feel comfortable, pick up the phone, send me an email, stop in the office and just ask a question, have a conversation, or lodge a complaint, whatever it happens to be.
Talk about if you were chosen for this position, an entry plan.
Well, I think there's a few things I'd want to do. First of all, obviously, by the time my first day of work had started, I would have hopefully had a couple of opportunities to meet with you as a board, come into the board meetings prior to my starting date to see see what's going on with the actual board and the agenda items, things of that nature. I think you've put a great team together on an interim basis with Mr. Lynch and some of his staff members to try to get up to speed with some of the things that he's been dealing with. I know he's leaving on a much-deserved vacation sometime in the near future, so I'd want to take advantage of that as quickly as I could. Those opportunities I think would be important. Obviously, sit down with staff, department heads, and get myself up to speed on the challenges and the issues that they're facing. Obviously, there's been some financial challenges you've been dealing with. I've been trying to read up on those to get myself acclimated to some of the challenges you have and some of the ways you're looking to try to address those. So really, it would be more of an opportunity for me to sit down with as many people who know a lot more about Winchendon than I would to try to get myself up to speed, get my hands around the challenges and the issues that you're dealing with, try to prioritize those issues with the board, and then determine how you want to move forward with addressing each of those issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi,
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, thanks.
How would you describe your management style?
I started to just describe it a minute ago. Again, I'm a pretty open person, a pretty approachable person. My management style, like I said, the way I would describe it on a day-to-day basis, and I mentioned it to the interview committee earlier, my style, while it might not be the most time sensitive way to deal with things, I will, if I have a question on something for the accountant, for the clerk, for the collector, whoever it happens to be, oftentimes I'll get up and walk to that person rather than pick up the phone or send an email. And in my mind, it does a couple of things for me. It, again, allows me to interact with the staff and the residents that are in the building at that particular time, to see what's going on, get a sense of what's happening in the building, and also have a face-to-face conversation. Oftentimes, emails, somebody might think there's some type of an emotion in the email when there isn't, and it's misunderstood. So I found it to be very productive to get up and have a conversation, walk around, have people get to know each other, have a more relaxed conversation than a more formal one at times, and just try to work together as a team. I'm only going to be as good as the people around me. I recognize that, and again, my directions from the board, and my hope is to work with the department heads to meet the goals and exceed the goals that the board sets on whatever subject we happen to be dealing with at that time.
Okay. How would you hold your staff accountable?
Well, I think it's, again, it's through goals and specific goals and having them understand what my expectations are moving forward. I've been doing annual evaluations on my direct reports since I've been a manager. Try to be as candid and honest as I can be. Sometimes it's not the most pleasant thing to do, but you can't expect somebody to do something if they aren't aware that they're supposed to be doing it. And if you aren't satisfied with the manner in which it's happening, I think it's important to share what your concerns are and try to have those addressed. So, again, we're in a business. Everybody has a responsibility. I think as long as their expectations are understood and they should be held accountable for what their roles in the organization are. And if you find during the year that you're not meeting expectations, you need to let people know that. There shouldn't really be any surprises. At least I try not to have any surprises in my annual evaluations of my staff. There's no reason to wait until the end of the year to tell somebody that you're not satisfied with something that they're doing that you'd like to see done a little bit differently, a little bit better. It's important in my mind to share that information with them when it becomes available to you, and try to work cooperatively to try to address that shortcoming.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, another question. Mr. Hickey, you mentioned that you would work to keep the department heads, on task, not wait till
Sure.
something's snowballed, what have you. Can you give us an example of, how would you do that? Meetings, whatever?
So, yeah, thank you. I typically now have weekly meetings with my senior staff, my department heads now. We talk about a variety of things going on in the department, things that are coming up. I have weekly meetings, I shouldn't say weekly meetings. I have meetings Monday mornings. We have 3 board meetings a month in Salem right now. So I have 3 department head meetings, senior staff meetings during the month, and I hold those the Monday, the evening, the morning of the day of the board meeting. And we'll talk about the agenda and what's on the agenda. We'll talk about what my expectation is, what my thoughts are going to be on how the board may react on some different issues. I want to get the department head's opinion on what their needs are based on the request that's coming in front of the board. So again, it's in my mind constant communication with everybody who's involved to try to make sure there's no surprises and everybody's on the same page. So, like I said, we meet 3 times a month as a group, and we meet individually. I'm a pretty open book, and I try to attack the day-to-day responsibilities that I have with the team of department heads, and I found it to be very successful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All set, Barbara? I'm going to ask you financial management questions. Get ready.
Goody.
It's a big one for us. I just want to know, first off, what's your approach to financial management? Obviously, we have some issues within our community.
Just a couple.
Yeah, that we're resolving, but what's your?
Sure. First and foremost, I mean, whether it's I'm not sure if it's a positive or not. My background is one of an accountant or a bean counter. I mean,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, your background is?
my my bachelor's degree is in accounting. So
Oh, okay.
I started in municipal government in the finance department, worked my way up to a finance director, and then went from a finance director to a town manager. So if I had to tell you what is my strength in any one of the many areas that we have to try to deal with as a town manager, I would suggest to you my strength is in accounting and finance. Some of the things that I've read about Winchendon and some of the challenges and problems that I think you've run into, it seems like has been a lack of oversight in a number of different on a number of different levels. I think based on reading, the biweekly updates that the acting manager gives the board, There's some accounting improvements that are occurring. There's better use of the financial software that I'm sure you spent a fair amount of money on a number of years ago that wasn't implemented properly, that is now being implemented properly, excuse me. Reconciliations that weren't happening until the end of the year and now are happening more regularly. Again, because I lived that was my job. I speak to my finance director on a regular basis. I understand what some of the challenges are that she's dealing with, but I also know how important it is to have up-to-date information for not just the board and myself, but also the department heads who are making budgetary decisions on a regular basis when they're looking at staffing levels or purchasing of equipment, things of that nature. So I think that coming into Winchendon at the beginning, I'd want to get myself probably a little bit more involved in the finance piece to make sure everything is working as well as it should be early on. I understand there's been a little bit of turnover in the finance department as well, so there would be an opportunity to work with the staff in the finance department, the collections department, to just to make sure that things are getting done in a timely manner, and that the financial information that we're providing to the board and to the public and to the staff is as accurate as it possibly can be.
Okay, now, one of our, with our finances, part of it is we have some oversight with the Department of Revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any experience dealing with, the state taxing authority, having, like, within the community, any type of?
So
You're going to be okay with that, I guess, is
Absolutely.
what I'm asking? Okay.
Absolutely. I think, at this point, it all goes back to the trust of the community, right? I think at this point, there's a lack of trust potentially in some residents in the community. And if we can have an independent agency like the state Department of Revenue come in and review the books and meet on a regular basis to verify that Winchendon is doing what they should be financially, and their records are being kept in a manner that is appropriate, I think all that does is provide another level of security to this board and to the residents of the community. I would welcome them.
Okay. Now, what about with capital improvements? I know you haven't spent much time in Winchendon, but just from the time you've been here, what would you, is there any focus that you would put on any area, or how do you decide what's important?
Well, having read the master plan update that's on the front page of the website, and some other documents are on the website, I certainly know that the downtown area is something that the community would like to see improved, as well as some of the recreational areas, roads, everything, right? So my understanding is, at least until recently, there hasn't been a capital improvement plan in Winchendon that's been brought forward for consideration and used as a planning document. Typically, they're 6 to 8 years. They will map out and identify what the capital needs are of the community. With the help of the department heads and the board and the citizens, we identify what the priorities are. If there's a way to somehow set a goal of a capital budget on an annual basis and then try to manage that, I think it's helpful to do that. And therefore, in that way, there really shouldn't be any surprises by the voters, to the board, or anybody else that we need to do this road work, we need to do these infrastructure improvements. It's a planning tool that is a tool. It's not going to be followed exactly. The further out you get, the little more sketchy it becomes. But it's I think it allows everybody to have a better understanding about what the needs are of the community for the next several years in a capital manner.
Okay. Do you have any experience with grants, writing grants or obtaining grants? Would
I
that
do.
be something you could?
I do. I have experience in writing and receiving grants. Again, I think the beauty of the federal government, I guess, and the state of Massachusetts as well, is there's money out there to assist with funding, whether it be grants or low-interest borrowings, things of that nature that are available to communities, to businesses within the communities to address a number of different areas that you'd like to see addressed, whether it be housing for younger kids just graduated from high school or college, senior citizens, the redevelopment and revitalization of the downtown area, public, public utilities, water, sewer, things of that nature. There's money out there to be had, and I think that it's a heck of a lot easier to come to the board and the voters with a handful of grant monies or funding sources other than tax dollars. So I think that would be the critical piece when you start looking at some of these infrastructure issues. Is there grant money out there that we can target to try to help ease the burden on the taxpayer?
Okay. Now, what about, how do you feel about, like, technology?
Love it.
Okay, and you're,
Yes, so I know what I want. Now, I'm not going to be able to program a server. I can tell you that, but I can tell you that we've made some real technology improvements in Salem. Technology is important as long as you understand what it's for, and technology isn't always the answer, but certainly the use of technology is becoming a much greater part of a community's job, and utilizing that, whether it be for electronic payments, for taxes, things of that nature. I now use a tablet for that's my computer, and I bring it to staff meetings, I bring it to board meetings, I do presentations with it. It's the website that you have is from Virtual Town Hall. It's the same vendor that we chose about a year and a half ago in Salem. It's a great website company. They do a tremendous job modifying their homepage and website to meet the needs of the community and what you want to post on it. So it's technology's, the Twitter thing I haven't gotten into. There's the people tweet. We've got a Twitter account in Salem for the police department and some others, and the local access TV station, and I'll let some of those other guys do that. I know it's important, and filling the role here, it's probably something that I'd have to dip my toe in the water on, but at this point, I leave that to my kids, teach me how to do that stuff.
okay, and just one other question about collective bargaining. Like,
Sure.
how are you dealing with the, working with the unions and all? Is that something
No,
that
it's-
you would consider a strength, or?
Well, I guess it depends who you talk to. I've dealt with unions for most of my career in municipal government, and certainly in my 15 or so years as a town manager. Right now, I'm dealing with 5 different unions, collective bargaining agreements in Salem. I was talking to Bernie outside for a few minutes before we started tonight. Again, my approach with collective bargaining, I think everybody has different approaches. My approach is to just be very direct and say, this is what I can do. Here's the pie. Within reason, I don't really have too much of an issue how the pie is split up, as long as it's within the parameters that I've been given to work with. But that's the pie. And with some of the changes we're dealing with the economy the way it's been, and now it's starting to turn around a bit, the Affordable Care Act and the Cadillac tax and the challenges that every employer is going to be dealing with, and certainly you're going to be dealing with municipalities, and trying to implement language in a collective bargaining agreement that eliminates the risk that you have to be imposed a Cadillac tax is critical at this point. The closer you get to that deadline, I think the less leverage the community has and the more leverage the unions have. So I think if you talk to the union presidents and the union negotiating teams that I deal with in Salem, I think you'd find that their opinion of me would be that I'm pretty honest, don't pull any punches, and can be tough to deal with when I have to be, but fair.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a follow-up. I know you talked about our computer system and your accounting background, so I have to ask this question. Do you know Munis?
A little bit. A little bit. I can't, again, I'm not an expert, and I would never suggest I am, but a million years ago, when I was the finance director in Bedford, the financial software that was used at that point was Munis. But that was, again, several, updates or revisions or versions ago. So I can understand it, and I can probably work my way through it, but to be able to say that I can walk in the door and get behind a keyboard and operate that flawlessly, I'd be lying to you.
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I've
you
got a
know.
little bit of, I've got some experience. Accounting's accounting. And it's, I think if you understand accounting, it's, it's just a matter of getting acclimated to the software and what the software can and can't do. It sounds like the community is finally started to embrace trying to implement all the capabilities that Munis has, and and for whatever reason, up until the recent past, there were a lot of workarounds that had to occur that created untimely reporting, sometimes potentially inaccurate reporting, things of that nature, because Munis wasn't properly set up when it first came into town, and so hopefully you're getting beyond that, and things will get a little bit better for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Mr. Hickey, something that I personally feel has been lacking in the past on the financial side is a forecast, projecting ahead rather than just living in the minute. Could you explain to us how you would approach that?
So I've done a 5-year financial forecast in the past. I did one for Salem. Very candidly, I think it's ended up being fairly accurate. At the time, I'm not sure the governing body was too excited about the forecast as it was. But there's a lot of information that you have at your fingertips that you can make some reasonable assumptions on moving forward to give you a better sense of where you think you're going to be 2, 3, 4 years out. If that's something the board wanted to look at, that's certainly something that could be put together. If you've got a collective bargaining agreement, you know what your wage costs are going to be. Those are locked in the collective bargaining agreement. Your health insurance costs and employee benefit costs. You've got a track record of what those have been, and you can make some reasonable assumptions on where you think they're going to go. Same thing with utility, capital costs, things of that nature. I mean, primarily the budget's made up of wages, benefits, some capital things, and then just expendable supplies make up a small portion of the budget. So I think that there's an opportunity to develop a longer-term forecast that would be helpful to the board.
And one more question. When you make your annual report to the board for going into town meeting and putting the budget together and such like that, can you just tell us, is it a single page? Do you put some historical information in there? What sort of presentation do you make?
If I'm not answering your question correctly, just stop me.
Sure.
I will always get direction from the board on what they'd like to see for a goal. In most cases, recently it's been a tax rate increase. We would like to see a tax rate increase of no more than X. This year it was 1.7%. So that was my goal. What I present to the board is a budget book that has a transmittal memo that's 15 pages long, give or take, that just talks about what's included in the budget, why, some of the changes from the previous year, whether it be adding or reducing staffing, reorganizing potentially, talking about some of the capital improvements that we're looking at that shouldn't become a surprise to the board, but again, just to remind them and to the rest of the readers, along with a detailed budget, by line item that supports the proposal that I'm making. I then will do a PowerPoint presentation to the board when I formally present my budget to the board, and again highlight to them much of what's in my transmittal memo for not just the board to see, but for the public to see.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're aware of what's happening. The budget books will go to the board that evening. My presentation, my budget, the transmittal memo, everything that we've got will go on our website for the public to digest, and I'll do a couple of local access TV shows to explain, you know, what's included and whatnot. Again, it's just trying to make people aware of what's happening. So when you get a little bit closer to the voting time, people aren't surprised about what's in the budget, and what is and what isn't. So that's really it. And then we spend, and we just finished. We spend the month of September and some of October reviewing the budget with the board. They bring it to the budget committee. I have a budget committee meeting tomorrow night where they're supposed to vote to make any changes to the selectmen's budget tomorrow night. So we're almost done the review period, and then it goes forward from there to the voters.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Economic development.
Yes.
Winchendon the tax burden in Winchendon is on the backs of the homeowners.
No question.
Our business base, our commercial base, our industrial base, turn of the century, great. Obviously eroded a lot since then.
Sure.
Having come to town, going to the Winchendon School and such, Central Street, a lot of empty storefronts. Can you tell us what are your thoughts? How would you approach economic development, taking into account your experience has been in much larger cities?
Sure.
Obviously, we're a much smaller, close-knit committee.
Sure. So there's a couple of things, I guess. It seems like Winchendon has done a good job of trying to identify through a master plan what the community's looking to see. So then it's just a matter of trying to identify and bring some of those businesses that you'd like to see in development that the community would like to see as you move in. The area itself, I think you've got an opportunity potentially to market yourself. It's not just Winchendon, but also just the region, whether it be regional economic development or regionalization of town services, and try to identify what the needs are, what the goals are and expectations of the people. Work with the state of New Hampshire, state of New Hampshire, I'm in the wrong spot. State of Massachusetts, to with the state to try to market some of the lots and the properties that are available, to make the people who are looking to move into communities like Winchendon aware that there are some properties that may fit their needs. So it's a very proactive approach, I guess, that you need to try to take. I mean, candidly, I think a lot of these larger developers have a better sense of, they've done their homework before you even know they're looking. So I think it's important to again, be proactive, get information where you can, any way you can, about what you're trying to do and what the benefits of locating in Winchendon are and in the region, to try to fill those storefronts, and whether there's state grants available to revitalize that the town can apply for. There's revitalization grants that you have local communities, local businesses that can potentially apply for, and you work with those organizations to try to secure them some low-interest, low-cost financing to assist them in relocating and moving into Winchendon. Working with the local realtors, the Chamber of Commerce, things of that nature, to try to deal with, what their needs are and how they can help. Again, I hate to keep using the term, I guess, but it's a team approach of just trying to put Winchendon on the map and saying this is why locating in this community, what this community can do for you as a business, and what you can do for the community, and why you'd be successful.
People have said that Winchendon is not very business-friendly. Small business wants to come into town, and this is just what I've heard.
Sure.
How important to you is what am I trying to say? Mike, what am I trying to say?
Well, how important it is to revitalize the small business, the image of an anti-business climate I think is where you're trying to go.
Yeah, that might be it.
Um,
And when I say anti-business, you know, the zoning,
Sure.
all the licensing and all that stuff like.
Sure.
How do you overcome that perception?
Again, I think it's these people are customers, they're not, you know, I guess I look at them as customers and not taxpayers or business owners, but customers, and what are the complaints that they have, and how can you best address those? Is it through the planning board approval process, or the zoning board approval process that they're having challenges with? Is it through the permitting process internally in the town office building where, you know, building permits aren't being issued in a timely manner, or they're, the inspectors may be, you know, applying the law in their mind a little bit more rigidly than they need to. Again, I think it'd be important to reach out to the business community and find out what their specific issues are. And there'll be some issues you can certainly try to deal with, and you can address internally. There are some issues that may be out of, excuse me, the manager's hands, but try to address those as best you can. So, in my mind, it's these people are customers. What I've learned is, you tell them what to expect when they walk in the door. They'll make a business decision whether they can afford to move into the community or not, and you stick by, and you don't change the rules halfway through. And I think it's as simple as that. You establish what those rules are. If they choose or decide that those rules are something they can't live within, they make the business decision to locate someplace else. I think the hardest thing that a business challenges the business has is to decide to move into Winchendon, for example, because they expect a certain level, they have a certain level of expectation of service, things of that nature, and then have that expectation not be met. Leaves an awful sour taste in their mouth. Word gets out to other business owners and people looking to relocate, and a reputation starts that needs to be addressed. And if that reputation is in fact in Winchendon, I think one of the ways you try to deal with that is to acknowledge you've got a problem. Meet with the business owners that can articulate what that problem is, and then go to work with whoever the appropriate parties are, whether it be staff, whether it be a planning board, a zoning board, a board of selectmen, what have you, to try to see if there's a middle ground or a modification that can be made to the process to address the concerns that the business community has. They're a critical part of the community, as I think everybody's aware.
Right. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hickey.
Thank you.
For being here.
I was wondering if you're going to talk.
Being interested. Earlier, we talked about your management style.
Sure.
But I'm curious about your community leadership style. What's your vision of the manager within the town of Winchendon?
My vision of a manager in any community is to be a leader that leads with their actions and not their words. You know, the only thing I have, in my opinion, is my integrity, and that's something I hold very, very close. If a manager of any kind loses the faith or the trust in the people that they manage, they aren't going to be very effective. So I manage, like I said, I manage in a way that I don't pull any punches. My role as a manager is to be out in front of issues, in some ways to be the face of the community, but in other ways, my role, as I see it, is somebody who provides the information that this board needs to make decisions, and then when things go well, the five of you get all the accolades, and I stand in the background, because that's just where I want to be. And if things don't go well, I stand in front of you and take the criticism, because I'm the person who presented to you the information. You know, Bernie and I we had a few minutes in the hallway today. My day, I start my day every day by opening up the paper, and every day that my name's not in it is a good day. No disrespect to any of the reporters in the room, but usually it's if an article has been brought to the newspaper, it's in many cases not a positive one. So I'd much prefer to stand in the background, let the elected officials take all of the praise and know that I've done my job.
Now, Winchendon, like any community, has several different stakeholders. And I would say many of those stakeholders like to be informed and interested, especially in the community. How exactly do you deal with those stakeholders, such as the selectmen,
Sure.
the school department, citizens, and even the business community?
Well, there are certainly different segments. Let me try to answer your question this way. So I often, on a regular basis, will send emails out to the board if something's going on, so you're aware of it. You know, water main break, something's going on that you should hear. I don't want you to hear anything from the newspaper or from social media that you should hear from me. So whether it be an email quickly to say something's going on, just want to make you aware of it. I do a weekly update to the board on issues that are going on in town, so they're aware of it. That gets posted to the town website as well as going to the Board of Selectmen. I have made myself available to civic groups to speak at, to help out with it in different occasions. I've done live call-in TV shows for the local access station where people can call up and say, yeah, ask me anything. It's not scripted. It's not. There's no tape delay. So they can just ask whatever questions they want to ask. So again, in today's media, there's so many different options that are out there. It's easy to keep people aware of what's going on. I think what's important is to make sure that they're aware that there are ways for them to stay involved and stay up to date, whether it be through the town website or town meetings or neighborhood meetings or whatever it happens to be, meetings with whoever stakeholders are there in that particular situation or issue.
And Winchendon is lucky, well, the Central Massachusetts region is lucky to have actually some pretty good state representation. You mentioned that you're comfortable with working with, advisory boards such as the Department of Revenue. How comfortable are you working with our state representatives and senators?
Well, again, they're an important tool in the toolbox, so to speak. I mean, if there are issues that you're facing that are regional or not just impacting Winchendon, it's important for those legislators, senators, whoever it happens to be. Does it make sense to meet with the Board of Selectmen? Does the Board of Selectmen want to meet with them prior to the legislative session so that you can make them aware of what the challenges and situations are you're dealing with here, and they can look at either proposing legislation, supporting or not supporting legislation that will help with the task that you're dealing with here. So I think it's critical to have a relationship with those legislators and senators. In Salem, I'm very fortunate to have the Senate President represent Salem, and I can pick up the phone, call his cell phone. He can call my cell phone. We communicate on a regular basis with issues that are, and we get together on a reasonably. We meet several times a year, let me put it that way. Whenever he's got an issue he needs some help with, or I need some help with, we have no problem giving each other a call, talking about things. He's a great resource, and I would assume the legislators here would be the same.
And we've also got a great little region where we could have a lot of potential to work with other towns.
Yes.
Do you have any experience with working with other towns on different projects?
Regionalization, in my mind, is something that's going to be critical to, I guess I'd call it New England at this point, in trying to provide an affordable level of service to the residents that you serve. There are other areas of the United States, down south, for example, that have county governments. They deal with things on a much more regional basis than they've got regional managers, for example, rather than town managers. That really needs to be explored. It's a double-edged sword because let's say, for example, you're going to get into a regional dispatch center for police and fire, for example. Right now, if you have just a town of Winchendon dispatch center, you can control what goes on there, meaning budgets, salaries, things of that nature. If you join a regional dispatch center, you have to trust that the individuals who are responsible for that, which is typically a representation from all the communities that are in that dispatch center, are going to take the same level of care that you have with the town department. So you've got to give up a little bit of control there, knowing that it's more cost-effective to do so, and that the people that you're putting in the role of the board that manages that service, that they are capable of being as frugal and responsible with the monies that they're asking for as the Board of Selectmen are here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I got 2 points I'd like to come back to. As New Hampshire and small towns and Massachusetts or town, your school budget is always the one that's the biggest budget in town. Unfortunately, New Hampshire does not get any funding really from the state compared
Very
to
little.
Massachusetts.
Very
So
little.
the burden falls on the
Taxpayers.
actual taxpayer. Here we're fortunate, I say fortunate, to be about a 70-30 split. How do you, when you look at that, when you interact with obviously you're interacting with your school department, how do you deal with that type of budgetary slant?
Well, again, I think it's a matter of planning. It's a matter of trying to prioritize what the needs of the community are. Having a strong relationship with the superintendent of the schools is something that's critical, I think, in the overall management of the community. Certainly, the school district, in my mind, has a bit of an advantage in the communities because they need the money to educate your kids. So they've got that built-in advantage where you're just trying to plow roads or whatnot, and not trying to provide the children of the community a great education. But again, the capital plan would include the school district as well as the town needs. If the boards could support doing that, it's a balancing act, and it's how do we deal with the needs of one organization over another, and there are going to be priorities, and those priorities are going to rule, what organization may get funding one year and not the next.
Okay. The other thing that intrigued me was you said that I would take it that Salem does a lot more with their local station,
The local-
community access than.
Yes, we've got three.
So
I'm
let me
sorry, I
just back
apologize.
you out for a second. So I think we have our board meetings and that's it across the town. There's different board meetings, and other than that, public access is nil. You intrigued me when you say you'd like to have a show and to have residents talk to you. I think that's, just from what I heard, is a fantastic idea. I'd like to capitalize on that. Is that something that you've done there, where you talked about your budget presentation, also being able to talk about that? Would you use that tool here? It's an untapped resource, that's where I'm trying to go. Would you use that tool here to reach out to the community?
Yeah, yes. I guess the short answer is yes, and if I could maybe expand upon that a bit. Local access is a necessary evil at this point. It's something that's available to communities to use. It's not just in my mind, it's just not to come in a couple of weeks a month, to tape Board of Selectmen meetings, and that's it. It's a resource out there to get the message out to the subscribers of the cable network about what's happening in town. So it's another source of media, whether it be the website, whether it be tweeting, or whether it be the local access TV stations. Those are all a resource that the community has to get the word out. I mean, people travel now to work. They leave at 6:30 in the morning. They come back at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Unless something's happening in their front door, a lot of times they're just not as involved as they used to be. Local access TV gives you the opportunity to tape something and allow a person at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch what I've got to say, and that fits their schedule, and it just works. Rather than having them have to rearrange their schedule to try to catch up with what's happening in town. And with, if I could just say one last thing, I think it's important now with what I believe to be potentially a little concern over the over the amount of trust that the residents have of their government. It's going to be critical to get out there and maybe give them more information than they typically would need, just to give them a comfort level that the finances are being taken care of properly, that you're meeting the expectations of the voters, of the Board of Selectmen, of the state of Massachusetts, with some of the challenges that the community's faced over the last year or two. So it's a necessary evil. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
That concludes our questions.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. May?
Over the past year, obviously, you're aware of what we've gone through. There's been a lot of discussion about the type of town manager that the citizens of Winchendon want.
Sure.
And one thing that's come over very loud and clear to me is that we need a hands-on town manager. Someone who is physically present as much as possible. You mentioned walking the streets. That is so critical at this point, and it segues into what you were just saying a little bit about the trust and such like that. If you were offered and accepted the position of the town manager, can you give us a sense of how would you reach that goal of being that hands-on town manager?
Well, I think it's a lot of what I've already said. Whether it be walking from business to business during the day and introducing myself, and making them aware that they can reach out and give me a call. Having somebody walk in the door unexpectedly because they have a question or a problem, and having the door open for them and giving them the time they need to answer the questions. Whether it be a TV show, the civic organizations. Again, there's a lot of things to do on a daily basis. I think it's going to be really important initially to really take the time to get out and have people put a face to the name and have them be comfortable that when they have a problem or if they have an issue, that they're going to have somebody on the other end of the phone, on the other end of the email, whatever it happens to be, and they're going to get a timely response. They may not like the response, but they're going to be heard, and they're going to be given an explanation of why or why not whatever issue that they're having can be addressed to their satisfaction or not. So they may not walk away completely happy with the result, but they'll understand how we got to that result. And and I think that's just critical. And like I said, it's easy for somebody to say, just take a message and get back to them. It's easy to tell somebody, I'm in a meeting right now, or I haven't got time right now, I'm doing in the middle of something, I'll call you back. More often than not, if you can just take a few minutes, interrupt your day, and try to address the situation, it's gonna leave that resident, citizen, customer satisfied with the government that they're paying for, and be willing to share their experience with their friends, their relatives, their neighbors, that Jesus, if you do have a problem, he does listen, and he will get back to you. So it's, like I said, there's a number of different ways to reach out, but I think it's going to be important to reach out in all those different ways, to have people in this community regain the confidence that the organization deserves to have, and they deserve to, and they should have in their government. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, to a certain extent. If there were evening events or weekend events, would you be?
Yeah, you had a fall festival 2 or 3 weeks ago. Those are the types of things you need to go to, and walk around and again in a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt, and I would much rather be in shorts and a t-shirt right now than this suit. And I think it's important for the residents in the right venue to see it that way. and to have you be somebody more than just somebody who sits behind a microphone on a Monday night
Sure.
talking to local access TV.
All right, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay. That concludes our questions.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming and expressing interest in the position. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you. I guess I have a couple. I'm aware that you'll be, I guess, publicly debating who you're going to offer the position to next Monday evening. Is the expectation that one or more of the candidates are supposed to be here for that discussion?
No.
No.
No, okay. What is, if I could, what is the board looking for in their next town manager?
I'll let each individual board member speak for themselves.
Sure, thank you.
I'll start with Mr. Siganowitz.
Well, I think that we, when we advertised the position, we actually met before, and each of us gave our opinion on really what we wanted. Me personally, I'm looking for someone that I can talk to and really communicate with and really get deep down and understand things. Someone that can, give me ideas and I can give him ideas.
Sure.
And I did notice that you said you had an open door
Yeah.
type of policy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I'm looking for.
Great.
And obviously someone who is really experienced in the financial aspect of managing a town.
Audrey?
I've got to echo Austin to some degree. We did have input initially prior to the posting of the
Sure.
of the position. Ideally, a jack of all trades and master of all of them. We've pretty much covered what we're looking for. The hands-on,
Sure.
the presence, I think, is very important.
Sure.
For me personally, I too am an accounting major. I'm looking for a numbers person. I want someone that understands that,
I'm your
can take
guy.
control of the numbers, and will make us aware if there is a problem
Yep.
before it happens.
Oh, yeah.
And that's my interest, is someone with the numbers.
My interest and would be mostly somebody who communicates freely with the board.
Sure.
Not necessarily telling us what they think we want to hear,
Right.
but that honesty of telling us the hard stuff that we probably don't want to hear. It's important that we hear that, even though we're not going to like it. We have to hear it. And so somebody who's so open and honest, I think is important. Also, somebody who does have a connection with the town, that they have some kind of a vested interest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I'd like on our next town manager to bring is a healing. There's been a divisiveness, and you're not going to solve all your problems in a day. But I'd like that person to come in and be able to be open to both sides of town, whatever side people say they're on or whatnot. I'd like that person to be a partner moving forward, because this community has a lot of opportunities. I'd like that person to help us rebuild the trust and the opportunities that can bring to make this community better for the citizens here. But not only for that, but the opportunity for the next town manager to put his stamp, signature mark would be, that's gonna be the end result of the legacy of this board and the next board, is how do we put the next guy in place to make this community better? We have a financial situation that needs to be solved. Obviously, we're working towards that. We've got some groundwork laid. We'd like to move that forward. I think that's key, but a communicator, that wants to work with the public. That was very loud and clear. And that's the most important, I think one of the most important pieces, other than, everything else everybody else spoke about. But I think that is the linchpin, the communication with the community going forward.
Sure.
Is just huge.
Super. I can't really think of any other questions that I've got for you. I guess if you'd allow me to just say one thing in closing, I really had an interest in the community before I applied, and I think I've done my homework on the challenges that you're facing. I'd be aware of the challenges that I'd be walking into. During this interview and the interview with the screening committee, it's piqued my interest even more. I think with a brand new board or awfully new board, all 5 of you, it's a huge opportunity to work with a group of 5 people who really have the best interests of the community at heart. And this is probably one of the biggest decisions you're going to be making, at least in the near future. And I guess what I would like to leave you with is if you do choose me as your next town manager, that 3 or 4 years, 5 years from now, when you decide to leave the board, the best decision you made was to hire me. So I look forward to hearing from you on Monday. I thank you very much for your time, and best of luck.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Can't look at your notes? Kind of front of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. Yep. With that being said, if no one else has any other business to go about this evening, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. We are adjourned at 8:02.